Hey everyone, my name is By Getroman, and this is Built by Getroman. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll be working with a website called Algo Expert, which is designed to help you ace the interview. My attempt today is to solve one coding challenge called 2 number sum. My whole goal really is to get better at solving coding challenges in the context of problem solving, soft skills, technical communication, and hard skills, which entails actually knowing all of the data structures and algorithms that would help me assist in solving these coding challenges. But more importantly, I'm really interested in getting over the hump of speaking in front of people, and that's part of my goal, is to excel in the communication part. So if that sounds interesting to you, and if you want to learn how I think and how I process problems and get an insight into my problem solving skills, then you're in the right place. So please keep it locked, don't go away. This should be fun. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back. So today we'll be going over a coding challenge on Algo Expert. But before I do that, I wanted to give you some of the strategies that I work with as far as my problem-solving techniques, and what I found worked for me over the past couple of years. And in addition, I want to just lay out how the video is going to work, how these coding challenges are going to work. What I'm not going to do is code for 12 hours straight. That's not happening. All right. I have a life. All right. I have kids actually probably knocking on this door right now, asking, "Where's daddy?" So I don't have the time for that. But what I do have the time for is a structured way of going about these coding challenges. So I want to explain that really quick. But first, this is the model. What you see in front of your screen is the learning period. The learning pyramid. Did I say period? The learning pyramid. So, as I mentioned in the previous video, I was a technical instructor for about 5 years, roughly. I started in Connecticut and made my way here into New York City and worked for a company called the Knowledge House, which is a nonprofit out of the Bronx, helping low-income, underserved, underprivileged tech enthusiasts to get into the tech world. So I had the privilege to actually work with those students in excelling and fast-tracking their learning to get them to a point where they can have a shot to go to one of those premier coding boot camps in New York City or get into the workforce as a software engineer. So I'm actually on that path myself. I have been for the past 6 years, as I mentioned before. So what I've learned in the past is, during my teachings, is this thing called the learning pyramid. And I like to follow this structure simply because it works for me. One of the things I learned over time is trying to figure out what type of learner I am. And what I've come to realize is well, first of all, there are 3 types of learners, right? You have the visual learners, the audio learners, and the kinesthetic learners, right? Kinesthetic being the folks that are more hands-on and like to actually do the thing in order for them to learn that specific topic, right? So where do I fall into this? I am a hybrid of, actually, no, I'm going to say about like 80%, 90% kinesthetic. The visual and audio works at times, but I use the video and audio side of learning to just help me get a structure, understand where I'm going with whatever task I have in front of me. The kinesthetic part is really the bread and butter, is the meat and potatoes of my learning style. So it's really one of the reasons why I'm doing these live coding sessions, is to help myself get better at coding challenges, but also that's the hard skill side, but on the soft skills, help my technical communication, get myself out there a bit more. So back to this learning pyramid. So as you see, when I was teaching at the Knowledge House, I would go over this chart just to give some insight, right? To give me some perspective. And one of the parts I used to hone in on was the teaching others part, right? Teaching others is 90% of this learning pyramid, right? There's a quote: tell me and I'll forget, teach me and I'll remember, but if you involve me, I will learn. And that's key, that's gold. So where do you fall into this learning pyramid? Comment below. Let me know where you fall into this pyramid. Are you a kinesthetic learner? Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? All right. So in order for me to get better at these coding challenges, I'm gonna try to walk through it myself live on YouTube, and hopefully we learn something. So let's get into it. As I mentioned, we're gonna be going with the 2-number sum coding challenge, and I will start the timer very soon. So let me just make sure I'm all set up here. Let's get into the actual coding questions on this side, right? So let's get into this. 2-number sum. So what I have in front of me is basically a what I'm writing out is the framework I'm going to be using, called REACTO, and it's an acronym for the following. The R is repeat the question. The E is to give examples. A is the approach. C is actually write the code. T is for testing, and O is for optimization. So it's a strategy that I picked up from the folks actually at Full Stack Academy. So shout out to them. And it's what I'm going to follow to try to solve these coding challenges. Okay. So let's get into this 2-number sum. So 2-number sum is asking us to write a function that takes in a non-empty array of distinct integers and an integer representing a target sum. If any 2 numbers in the input array sum up to the target sum, the function should return them in array, in any order. If no 2 numbers sum up the target sum, the function should return an empty array. Oh, I forgot to start the timer. It's part of being live, right? So let's start the timer. Right, here's the let's start this part down. We got 25 minutes, so let's get cracking. Let me lower some of this music. Here we go. All right, so let's repeat the question. All right, let's get that out the way. So where was I? Write a function that takes in a non-empty array of distinct integers representing a target sum. If any 2 numbers in the input array sum up to the target sum, the function should return them in an array in any order. If no 2 numbers sum up into the target sum, the function should return an empty array. Note, the target sum has to be obtained by summing 2 different integers in the array. You can't add a single integer to itself in order to obtain the target sum. You can assume that there be at most 1 pair of numbers summing up the target sum. Okay, so I need some more context to this. So what I'm going to do is I repeated the question. Now I'm going to try to provide some examples of what I think is happening here, and try to write out exactly what I think is happening. All right. So we got a function of some sort, right? And it takes in a non-empty array of distinct integers. So we have a function, and the input to this is going to equal some array of integers. Write a function that takes in a non-empty array of distinct integers and an integer representing a target sum. Let's see what this here sample input is going to be. I see. Okay, so we have an array of some numbers. Let's just put 3, 5, minus 1, and a target sum of 10. Actually, let's do 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do 8 because we have 8 that actually lives here, right? So let's try to replicate that in some form in this example here, all right? So the sample output, which they're saying in these set of numbers, we should be extracting out 1, -1, and 11. So I'm assuming the numbers 11 and 1 minus 1 work because 11 take away 1 is 10. All right. So it's saying the numbers could be in reverse order as well. So it doesn't matter which order it is. So in this example, the function is going to take some input, right? We have a target sum of 8. And we're going to return the numbers 3 and 5. 3 and 5 in an array. All right. Hints we don't want yet. We're not going to get into that just yet. I don't think I need them. So if any two numbers in the input array sum up to the target sum, right, which is happening over here. So 3 and 5, in the best case scenario, the first two numbers target up, then we need to return that array. Okay. So let's see here. If no two numbers sum up to the target sum, the function should return an empty array. So if the target sum was 11, which we don't have a combination in here of 11, there's nothing there, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, minus 1 is 7. Okay, just confirming. If 11 was a target sum, then this should return now an empty array. Is that what it wants here? If the two numbers sum up to a target sum, the function should return an empty array. Yes. Note that the target sum has to be obtained by summing two different integers in the array. Two different integers in the arrays. Okay, so let's just have an example down here. So let's say we have an array, another array of 6, 7, and 8, and 9. It's saying that the target sum has to be obtained by summing two different integers in the array. So while we're here, while our index is sitting, for example, at index 0, we have to somehow make sure that when we're adding two numbers, that the 6 is being compared to the 7. And then the 6 is being compared to the 8. And then the 6 is being compared to the 9. And if those numbers match, we're going to grab that index, and let's say this index, hypothetically, if these two numbers met a target sum, we need to group them somehow and move them into an array of sorts here, an array, right? 6 and 8. I think that's what it's saying. Note that the target sum has to be obtained by summing two different integers in the array. You can't add a single integer to itself in order to obtain the target sum. You can assume that there will be most one pair of numbers summing up to the target sum. Okay, so I think I understand. Let me just make sure that I'm kind of getting the right understanding here. Let's just erase some of this. Let's provide another example here. All right, so this function its input is going to be an array, right? Some array with some integers in it, right? 2, 4, 6. We're also going to have a target. And I'm doing this again so I can have a better understanding. I'm going over the example part one more time just to make sure that I have everything covered, at least like open up that black box, if you will, because obviously here I have some parameters and sample input, but I'm trying to get in the mode of a coding interview where I won't have any of this available to me. Usually they throw you some arbitrary coding challenge, and then it's your job to like unveil that black box and try to get as much of the variance, as much of the details that you need in order to like put some context into that coding challenge. So what I'm doing really here is trying to like get in the habit of speaking out loud and asking these some questions and trying to get some clarity as to what's going on. So this is why I'm going over it again, right? Cool. So we have our, let's just say, for example, we have a target sum of 6, right? And if that target sum is met and a combination of these numbers, 2, 4, and 6, somehow add up to the target sum of 6, then we have met the expectation and should return that pair. So part of the kind of no-nos, for the lack of a better term, is that these two numbers, when we hit 6, this shouldn't work because you have to have a pair, right? It's saying here, note that the target sum has to be obtained by summing two different integers in the array. You can't add a single integer to itself in order to obtain the target sum. So there has to be a pair. So that's kind of good to know, right? So I'm gonna just put like a box up here. A variant is that you must have a pair. A pair of numbers. Okay, sorry if it's hard to read that. I'm using, by the way, a remarkable tablet, writing tablet. So if you're having a hard time seeing it, I apologize. But what I have here, actually circled, highlighted, is a variant of a kind of like a must-have. Like this thing must output. It must do the following, right? It must have a pair of numbers when you return out of the function, right? Because it's saying over here that the target sum has to be obtained by summing two different integers in the array. You can't add a single integer to itself in order to obtain the sum. All right. So what's going to be returned out of here basically is the pair, an array of the numbers 2 and 4, hypothetically. That should be the return statement, the answer. Okay? All right. Let me see if I'm missing anything else here. I'm going to read over this one more time. So we want to write a function that takes a non-empty array as the input, right? That's this. And an integer representing a target sum, which is this part, the target sum. Right? If any two numbers in the input array sum up to the target sum, hypothetically, let's say 2 and 4, right? Well, not hypothetically, it actually does add up. 2 and 4 add up to 6. The function should return them in an array. So we have to somehow identify that these two numbers add up to 6, and then grab these two numbers and return them in an array, which signifies to me that we can either somehow have a storage place that's gonna we're gonna instantiate an array in some variable to store the potential incoming numbers coming in, or somehow while looping through this array, when we hit those two numbers that add up to the target sum, cut the array at that point and return that. I don't know, thinking out loud. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's try to figure that one out. Let's see how much time we have left here in our timer. We have about 11 minutes left here. All right, so actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a timer here to help me out here so that I don't fall behind. All right, so let's just say we have 11 minutes. Let's match this up. Roughly, let's see, we have 11:22. And let's start that. Bingo. All right, so we have a timer here going as well on both screens so we don't lose track. All right, guys, so I think I kind of understand what's going on with the example itself. I spent some time reading out the question. I spent a little time going over some examples as far as some of the variants that I understood from what the prompt is telling us, and I feel like I wrote out all of the expected input, the process inside the function. Well, not necessarily the process, but and what's going to be returned, right? So more the input and the return statement. I didn't really talk about what's going to be in the meat and potatoes of the function just yet. So that's actually that's where the A part comes in, right? The approach. So let's tackle that. All right. So let's go over the approach. All right, let's just say A for approach. Cool. So I'm thinking the approach is going to be an iterative one. So what I mean by iterative is basically some sort of looping that's going to be happening through the array. I feel like that should be kind of like my first approach and try to get this working. It may or may not be the most optimal one, the most fastest, but we can talk about that in the O section, which is the optimization part of the coding challenge. All right. So I'm thinking that this is going to be, like I mentioned, an iterative approach. Right? So somehow we're gonna loop. We're gonna have to loop to this array that's coming in, right? So let's draw out this example here, this approach, right? So we're gonna say some loop of some sort, right? So for example, right? So if we had And numbers, let's see, 2, let's go by 2s, make it simple. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Our job is, our approach is to say that we're going to be looping through this array, and it's going to be somehow done like this, right? So we start off with the first index, right? We start off with the first index, and we need to kind of loop through each one and compare the first index with the next. All right. So in our function, we have our target sum of what? What is going to be? Let's just say our target sum is going to be 12. Right. So as I loop do the array. So I'm looking at 2. I somehow need to store this somehow. Have a tracker of some sort that's gonna keep the count of the addition between the 2 elements in the array, right? So maybe I would have some tracker here. So let's move this up here actually. Right, so I have the target is going to be 12, and I'm going to be tracking this somehow, a tracking variable. So let's do this. So we have one pointer at 0. So how am I going to compare this? How am I going to compare this number with this number? Okay, so I'm thinking that there's going to be 2 pointers in this array. There's going to be a pointer sitting at index 0 and a pointer sitting at index 1. Okay, so for me that signifies some sort of like nesting, some nested loops happening there somehow, right? We need to start with looping through the first number, which is 2, right? And somehow have a nested loop to pick up from the second element and make the comparison. Then if that numbers, when we add those 2 numbers, 2 and 4, if they equal 12, then we return that pair. If not, we move on to the next one, and then we compare 2 and 6. All right. If 2 and 6 add up to 12, we return that pair. If it doesn't, we keep it moving to the next one. So we move on to 8, and then we move on to 10. So as we get here, nothing. As we get here, yes. So then we return 2 and 10 somehow. Okay? So that's what I'm thinking as far as the approach when I say iterative, is kind of looping through this array in a nested loop format, right? And comparing those 2 numbers together. All right. So let me just make a note here. We're at the A. We kind of did that and describe the approach. Describe the approach of the of this coding challenge. So let me just quickly make sure that I'm not missing anything before I get to the C, which is like the actual coding part. And actually, I'm going to pseudocode it first and write all this up in some sort of notes, and then move on to code. All right. So I have a function that takes some sort of input, an array of some sort, and that array, in the best case, is going to have some sort of integers in that array, and I'm also going to have a target number that I need to match up when I loop through the array, right? I just need to loop through the array and find the pair that adds up to the target. And if I find that pair, I got to return those 2 numbers in an array, right? The approach I'm taking is going to be in iterative one. So I'll be looping through the array, and I'll have two loops, a nested for loop. I'll have a pointer that sits in the first index, and then a second pointer that will loop through the rest of the array. And as I'm looping, I'm comparing two numbers, right? So I'm tracking and I'm also comparing. So I should write that down, right? So I should say something along the lines of if index 0 and index 1 equals what happened here? There we go. If it equals the target sum, if they equal a target sum, then I need to return the pair. All right. So I think that pretty much sums up this coding challenges in terms of like the example and the approach I'm gonna take. Okay. Now, what I didn't talk about actually is in the event that I get an empty array, which is kind of like, it kind of tells you what's happening there. If there's an empty array, which I can kind of add to the bottom here, right? So, or we could say else, just to continue this, else if the array is null or undefined, then I need to return the empty array, right? Got to return an empty array. Okay, so hopefully I covered everything here. I think I did. I think I pretty much covered everything in terms of what I wanted to cover as far as the repeating the question, giving some examples, try to get it out of my head, try to figure out where am I going with this, which is not easy to do, especially in front of a camera, and then talk about my approach, right? So when we come back, we're gonna actually take a break, take our first Pomodoro break, which is a 5-minute break, and then come back and get into pseudocode and try to type this out in pseudocode, and then move into actual code and try to solve this problem. Okay, so we'll be right back. Enjoy your break. So to recap, before the break, we went through some of the strategies that helped us get to this point, which was to read over the prompt that's provided to us by Algo Expert, drum up some examples to assist us with potentially helping us with like understanding the problem, and also talk about our approach, which would help us kind of build out the meat and potatoes of the function. So I would like to spend this time now writing some pseudocode. All right. So Algo Expert has afforded us some real estate in their on their website to allow us to write some notes. So we're going to use their Scratchpad to take what we basically mind mapped on the right hand side of the screen here, all of this scribble and kind of drawing around, and try to like formalize it into some pseudocode. So this actually helps me a lot when I approach problems in general, not just coding challenges, just like in life in general. Is kind of like mapping it out in my head and trying to draw in pictures about that topic, and then basically taking that and organizing that mind map scribble of notes into some formalized algorithm of some sort. That would help me achieve my goal of solving that coding challenge. So I'm gonna attempt to do that now with what's in front of us, and take all this scribble and scrabble and put it into something more structured. Okay, so follow me here. So let's see. In our Scratchpad, we have to take some of this stuff here and change the song there. I wasn't feeling that tune. Let me know what you think about the tunes. If you have any recommendations about music, find the royalty-free music. You know, it's kind of choppy out there to find something that's good, but you know, we'll roll with this from now on until we get it, until we get it right. Okay, so all right. What I like to do first, what I normally do is stub out kind of like my structure. This next strategy that I use is called IPO. It's called input, process, output. So it's kind of like what I like to distinguish what's coming in, what's processing in that function, was the output. So, right. Hopefully you guys can see this. Let me just make this a little bigger here. Right. So let me just take that. Oh, I can't comment that out. Okay, they're notes. That's right. All right. So in our pseudocode, we want to write a function. Right. Let me see how I should do this. Should I write step 1? All right, let's just do this in steps. Step 1, write a function called what's it? ToNum, I think it's called. Right? What's the two number sum? Right. All right. So let's go back to the scratch. Okay, two number sum. Right. So, all right. So we want to understand what's coming in, right? So let's verify what is coming in. What is coming in as input, which is the I in IPO, right? So what we want to do is, can I tab over here? I'm new to this platform here. All right, I guess not. All right, so we take the input, right? What I usually do, honestly, is log out, console.log what's coming in as an input, because I don't know. Like, I need to understand what data structure is coming in, what data type is coming in, and I need to kind of inspect what's going on in there, right? We kind of know because, in this case, we kind of know because it's telling us, but I just like to make sure, right? So console.log input, okay. There you go. This music is weird. Some of the stuff is a little out there, but I like some of it. All right. So anyway, console.log input, right? Right. Boom. So we do that. So we're gonna ask ourselves what kind of data structure is coming in, and then in turn that should let us know, at least give us some sense of what kind of methods I can use on that piece of information that's coming into the function. Right? What methods can I use? Okay. All right. So we are going to be cool. So we write a function called toNumberSum. We have some input. We have two parameters. We got an array and some target number that should be coming in, right? I'm assuming. And then from there, I need to log that information out. And then depending on what data structure it is, for me, in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, do some research as to what kind of methods I can use on that data structure. I know a few off the top of my head, but there's some that I'm just not, that may not come up at the moment because there's so many methods for every type of data structure that, it's hard to memorize everything, which I'm not in the business of doing. Not that I don't like it, but I think spending time memorizing things is a lot. I would rather understand like focus on the problem solving side of it and figure out what is I can do to try to solve it and use those tools that are available on the internet that I can search up on Google and find the answer. Okay. Cool. So, all right. So once I do that, I'm going to, what do we have here? A return. We have a target. So if I have some information coming in, I have an array and a target. Do I need to resave that information inside the function? Do I need to resave that or restore it in some sort of variable in memory for some purpose? Initially, my thought is no, because those parameters that are inside the function are locally scoped to that function, so I could just grab it from there, unless I don't want to alter it first, right? I'm thinking in my head, if I don't want to alter those parameters, which are like variables basically, if I don't want to alter that, then I may have to restore it somewhere inside the function, maybe the first two lines, so I can use it and repurpose it for the return statement, or repurpose it for whatever process I'm gonna be doing on that data, and then return out at the end of the function. So for the sake of not mutating those parameters at first, I'm gonna create some new variables in the function. I'm gonna try that first, and then refactor it if I need to a little bit later if it's just wasted memory, and maybe that can be in the optimization part where I can restructure it where the space complexity part would be minimized. It'd be a better performance on that. But for now, I'm gonna just say, you know what, I'm gonna create two variables to store. Okay, two variables. Okay, one is gonna be what we're gonna call this. Nah, this is an array. We know it's array. Yeah, it's called array. Okay. let array equal input. Okay, let array equal input, which is one of the parameters, and let target let tar equal target. The naming is pretty bad here because just I need to refactor that part, but just kind of again thinking out loud here. All right, so I create two variables that's going to store those initial parameters coming in for the sake of not mutating them for a future possible edge case where I don't need them to refactor them. Okay, sorry for that ad. I got free music playing. All right, so yeah, what else? So I store these variables. Now I want to loop through them. I want to create my first pointer. Actually, no, I'm forgetting something. I need to create another array. So create variables. I'm just keep that open there. So I want to create a third variable that I'm not gonna write this out. I'm just gonna do it the same format here. So this is a third variable that's gonna actually store the matching pair. The matching pair when I pair up those two numbers together. So I'm gonna say paired numbers, and that's gonna be an empty array. Okay, that's gonna be an empty array there. So let paired numbers equal empty array. All right. I think I got all of it there. All right. So this may change because I don't know. Maybe there's some other information I'm missing, but I have some. But so far I have create three variables. So I don't for the purpose of not mutating the initial data that's coming into the function. So I have an input target and an empty array to store the pair numbers. Okay. So next, I'm gonna write a for loop that iterates through the array. Right. Yes. Write a for loop that is going to iterate over the array, right? And in here, I'm gonna create the first pointer, which will sit here somewhere. That would take up the first pointer, would be like the first element in the array. Okay. All right, guys, welcome me here. This is not easy doing this out loud. With with the mindset of with the idea of other people going to watch this or watching it live eventually. So yes, we have our first pointer here. So in that creation of the first pointer, I also want to store it somehow, right? I create the first pointer, and use that. I need to somehow store that in memory. Store it in memory so I can use it for comparison purposes later, right? So if I have 2, I'm grabbing that first one. It's the pointers there. Then I'm gonna have another loop, a nested loop that's gonna take the next number and start making comparisons. All right. So I want to make sure that I have that somewhere in memory. So create the first pointer and store it in a variable for comparison purposes. Purposes for later use, for later, something like that. All right. So I create the first pointer, store that first element in some variable. Then I need to start working inside that array. Start working inside that array, and start working my way into the array and start comparing and start working here, right? Work my way in there and start comparing the two. Okay, so let's just erase this real quick to make sure that I'm getting the right details, right? So let me just make another array here. We're saying 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I start here, which is that first for loop. Okay, that first for loop. Then I create the second for loop 1, for loop 2. Then I'm comparing these two numbers here. All right, so I'm comparing those two numbers. All right, so let's just write that up here. All right, boom, boom. Number 5, create a second for loop, right? So we're gonna store the second pointer in a variable, or second element, which is, in a variable. Okay. Let me make sure this is good music I can play that's royalty free. I don't want to get dinged for not having royalty free music here. We'll find out once I post. All right, so we'll skip this ad here. Sorry, I probably shaved up a couple of seconds there in the timer. Still working through my let me stop the timer here. All right, guys. Let me see. Royalty free. Chip hop. No copyright music. Let's try this one here. All right, we'll go with this. All right, sorry about that. Let's start up the timer again. Actually, this thing started back at 25 minutes, but we have roughly 5 minutes to our next break. It is what it is. All right, so we're gonna create a second for loop, store the second pointer element in a variable, and then here I think is where we start making the comparisons, right? As I indicated here, we start in the first pointer, we go to the second, we start comparing, right? Is that a match? Is that gonna equal to 12? No, it's not, right? So now we go from here to here. Does that equal 12? No, it doesn't, right? Next, we take the 2 and we compare it to the 8 and so on and so forth to the 10 until we get to the 10. All right, so we need to have that comparison somewhere. Now, the question is, when I create the 2 for loops, am I doing the comparison inside the second for loop, or inside the first for loop? My initial gut reaction is saying in the second for loop, inside the second for loop, because when I'm inside the first for loop, I still have some reach into its memory because it's kind of still running, it's still executing. And I figured if we put it in the second for loop while it's traversing through the array, that as it's traversing, I can grab those numbers and compare it to the outside loop, which is still held in memory, and make those comparisons. So yeah, let's think about that. What else can I do here? I may need in the variable section some Boolean, some place to hold a Boolean value. So I could say let is paired to be false at first, right? Because I'm thinking in each of those for loops, if I do get a match and I do get a hit between the outside loop and the inside loop, and it does match up to the target number, that I need something to say, hey, is this a match, true or false? Hey, is this a match, true or false? So initially the state is going to be false, but as soon as I find a match, I could change that is paired variable to true. And if it's true, then I take that number that's stored in memory in the outside loop and the current number I'm on in the inside loop, the current element I'm traversing through, and take those copies of those numbers and throw them in the let paired array, and then return that. I have not accounted for the edge case of when there's no array, but I feel like that could be easy. That could be right in the beginning somewhere that says like, hey, if this thing is, if the parameters are empty or null, then just return an empty array. All right, so how much time do I have left? 2 minutes. All right. So create the second for loop, stored in the, let's see here. Let's remove this timer. All right, create a second for loop, store the second pointer and element variable. Okay, cool. And then inside here, I'm just gonna say, I'm just stub this stuff out. Inside the second for loop, make a comparison of the following. All right, so we're gonna say if the what are we calling the first point? Okay, let's create the first pointer variable. So let's say if the first pointer is if the first pointer, no, we need to add, wait, what am I doing? We need to make we gotta do some math here. What am I doing? I can't do a comparison yet. I need to do the math and then make the comparison. Right, how much time do we have? 41 seconds. All right, let me just stop here. All right, guys, so I shaved off a couple minutes with the music. I'm sorry about that. But hey, you know what? We'll get better over time with the music. Please comment below if you have a royalty-free music list that I can use that's pretty good and actually has a lot of songs, because these things run out after a while, and then I don't want to get zinged by YouTube saying that I'm using paid music and that I never pay for it. I'm streaming. But all right, so we're gonna hop into this break pretty soon, and when we come back, we'll just pick up where we left off. Enjoy your break. All right, guys, welcome back. Hope your break was great. So, where we left off, we are actually in the middle of pseudocoding, and we left off at step number 6. So, we're saying inside the second for loop, make a comparison of the following, right? So, I think we ended up with saying there was some math involved of some sort, because we need to actually like say, hey, this first integer plus this second integer doesn't equal the target number, right? So let's say maybe in a variable we can store that. We can create a variable that says add 2 nums, something like that. Full disclosure, I suck at naming variables. I'm getting better at it, hopefully, with time. All right, so create a variable, add 2 numbers that does the following. So we're going to say pointer 1 plus pointer 2. Pointer 1 plus pointer 2. We'll do the math in that, right? We'll do some sort of arithmetic on that. We add those 2 numbers, and that should that variable should be kind of like our memory space we're going to use to make the comparison, basically. So we're going to say, and so when the math is done, we'll get a number of some sort. So for example, if our first number being 2, which is the first pointer, and second pointer, when we do the math, if 4 plus 2 equals a target, then we have a match. We meet our goal of saying that we found the paired number that matches the target. Right? So we're gonna say if pointer 1 if add 2 numbers, is strictly equal to the target, which is also an integer, do what? What am I doing? So we create a variable called add 2 numbers. We can change that later. But we're saying if set the timer here. All right, we're a little behind on the timer. It's fine. If the add 2 numbers is equal to the target, then there's a pair. There's a pair. Okay. Let me think about this. So we do some math, add the 2 numbers together. We add the 2 numbers together. The comparison happens. If this variable called add 2 numbers is equal to the target, then is paired is equal to true, right? Then we change is paired to true. Okay. Then what happens? What happens after that? Change is paired to true. Do I need? Now I'm questioning this variable, because that would be kind of like a spark or indicator for something else, maybe another function to happen to but I don't want to do that. I just needed to say if these two numbers are true, I mean, if they add up, then I can just return it from there, maybe? I can just push. Oh, wait. I can say, maybe I don't need this there. Maybe I don't need that variable. Maybe I can say something like, if the two numbers are added up, I can push pointer 1 and push pointer 2 into paired numbers. Right? Into paired numbers. So if 0, pointer 0 and pointer 1 adds up to target, then we stop there and take pointer 1 and pointer 2 and push it to the paired numbers array. That's my initial thought there. Right? So when we push it, we should break out the loop. We can return out of this. We could return and break out the loop. All right, so we're out of the first for loop. When we enter the second for loop, I could just break, right? Break out of here. I can break out this in the inner loop, and then the outer loop needs to stop as well. So I need some sort of like return statement of some sort, I think, to break out of that loop. Or I can just break out of this too. And maybe catch something here that says if there's no match, then return something else. But for now, I'm just gonna have a break. So my logic is saying, all right, inside we create the first for loop, created the first pointer variable, store the variable and for comparison purpose for later, create the nested for loop, store the second pointer element in a variable so we can have those two numbers so we can use them later to compare. And inside the second for loop, which let me get rid of this number because this is confusing me. Let's keep the numbering there. All right. Inside the second for loop, make a comparison of the following. So this is where we compare the two numbers, right? So we're going to create a variable called add two numbers and take the first pointer and second pointer at that very moment in time while it's iterating through that array, and say that if both numbers equal the target, push pointer 1 and pointer 2 to the paired numbers. And then we break out of the inner for loop. That'll take us to the outer for loop. We break out of that one. And then on the outside, at step 6, we will return paired numbers. Right? Maybe I'm more than certain I'm missing something here. But this is my initial thoughts here. All right. So, yeah, I think I don't know, let me go through this again. I have some time here to like try to. Oh, I didn't account for the if the array is null or empty. I totally forgot about that. So I need to figure that one out. All right. So I probably can do that here as a step 2.5 that says if the input coming in if the input that's coming in is empty, so like null or undefined, then return an empty array, right? So it's saying here, if the array is null or empty, return an empty array. And yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna stop with the pseudocoding part, or at least the kind of like the notes. So from here, I probably could, like, fine tune these notes. Let's make this a little bigger here. All right, I can probably fine tune these notes into something else, like a little bit more pseudocodey with actually like more technical terms and all that. But it is what it is. So, all right, let me see where I'm at with time. 13 minutes. Okay, so I think I got down the pseudocode part. So this is the C in REACTO. So again, I'm using this strategy called REACTO, which is an acronym to help me get through all the steps necessary to solve a coding challenge, and over time get better, right? So this is what this is about. All right. Well, actually, I'm not done with the C because I need to code it out. I'm done with the pseudocode part. So what I want to do now is actually move over to a different screen and have my scratch pad and my playground, my sandbox, where I can actually write the code out and start stubbing out the code and see if I can replicate what I have in my notepad, my scribbles, and my scratch pad, where I actually wrote down in more plain English pseudocode format and like replicate what I have there and basically get a solution. So let's try that. All right, so what I'm gonna do is get in here, and actually I'm gonna have to create another separate screen here, just so that I can have all three lined up without taking too much real estate, unless they provide that for us. Try layout. Well, they kind of do that for us. Never mind. Out of the way, I'll go expert. You thought about this edge case. Awesome. So let me just close this a little bit. Oh, look at that. All right, awesome. So let's go to the scratch pad, which is not here. Why is that? Where's my scratch pad? There you go. Whew. All right. I didn't want to do that again. All right, guys. So hopefully you guys can see this. Let me just close this up a little bit and make this part a little bigger. Hopefully, let me see. Hopefully you guys can see this, and now, I'll make sure in the next video that you're able to see it. So, all right. So, step 1. Write a function called toNumberSum. Well, guess what? It's already done for us. Awesome. Next, I want to verify what's coming in as an input. So it did it for us as far as like stubbing out the parameters, but let's just log it out and see what happens, right? So I'm going to console.log those two things. All right. And see how I do this. Run code. Oh, you failed at least one of the test cases. But is there like an output that I can see here? It's my first time running this, guys. Let me see. Not sure what's going on with the outputs. Raw output test case failed. Undefined. I just want to log this thing out, boy. Alright, it's not working for me. I guess this is one of those things I can't log out. Oh wait, raw output. Oh, there you go. I was on the wrong button there. Alright, there you go. So I'm logging out the array, right? So let me just make sure this is the array. Right. This is the target. Okay. You know what? I need more real estate. How do I do this? Try layout. Where is my quick test? Quad layout. Bear with me, guys. I'm trying to. What's the best way to do this? Okay, this is. I can probably work with this for now. And just roll with it like this, I believe. And just go to and from. What if I did this? Will it still show it? And do I have it here? Yeah, I do that. All right, guys. I'm learning this on the fly here. This is like live. So there's some things that I'm not familiarized myself with Algo Expert. So I'm just gonna run it like this and go to and from screens. All right. So cool. So this is the array. Here's some of the output I'm getting. All right. Let me remove my face here so y'all can see the test case. All right. So here's the array. Test case 3. Okay, so we have a couple integers there. And we need to find 10. All right, let's continue. So what I want to do now is continue writing, go back to my pseudocode and just continue writing. All right. So what kind of data structure is coming in? What kind of methods can I use? All right. So I know that an array is coming in, right? And I know I can use off the top of my head pop, push, what are the other ones? Splice, and there's some other ones. I have to look them up. I don't spend time remembering the methods. I just would rather know what I want to do and then go in and try to solve it. All right, so what's next here? So let's work with step 2.5. If the input coming in is empty or null, then return an empty array. All right, so let's start it. All right, so we say if the array is equal to null and array is equal to undefined, then we return an empty array. Oh, I use an assignment operator. Did not use a comparison operator. Okay, I failed all the tests so far. And what did it want exactly? It said notes. You can assume that there always be as most. No, where is it? Note that the target sum has to be obtained by summing two different integers in the array. Okay, you can assume that there will be at most one pair of numbers summing up the target sum. Where's the part where it said write a function that takes in a non-empty array of distinct integers and an integer representing a target sum if any of the two numbers are in the input. If no two numbers sum up to the target sum, the function should return empty array. Oh, so there's nothing here that said it was empty. Okay, so I kind of read that wrong. So it's saying if none of the numbers add up, then return an empty array. So we catch that later on. So 2.5 is not needed actually. So if I go back to my scratch pad, all right. So I don't need 2.5. All right, so let's create our variables. So we said we wanted a couple of variables, input, for the purpose of not mutating the original data set coming in. Okay. So let's remove this console.log. So we're gonna set let r equal array, and maybe we don't need this down the road. I'm just gonna do it because that's the way I was thinking at the time, right? Let target sum. I'll just leave it as target equal target sum, right? Then we're gonna say let's is paired equals false. And I may not need that part unless like that function asks me to return true or false at the end, whether a number is paired. But they're asking for the actual numbers, the actual pair, the array of the numbers. So I may wipe this off later on. But for now, I'll keep it just because I want to stay in line with what I wrote. All right, and paired numbers was the other one, right? So we're gonna say let paired numbers equal an empty array, an empty array. Okay. All right, so I'll write a for loop. Step 4. How are we doing with time? Got a minute left here. I'll try to step out this for loop. So write a for loop that is going to iterate over the array, right? So I'm gonna create the first for loop and just loop through the array and make sure that I'm doing the loop the right way and just print out every number that's coming into the array. And also create the first pointer on top of that. All right, so we're gonna create the pointer starting at 0, and the condition is going to be let I equal 0, right? And if I is less than array.length, length. So we start the pointer at 0, and we're saying the condition is going to be from 0 until the end of the array, the length, and the incrementation part is going to allow us to increment through each element. And let me just make sure this for loop is working. So we're going to say let current element equal was it like this? It's been a while, right? Boom. All right, let's just run it. Okay, it's running. I'm getting each element, running to each. It's going through each element and constantly logging it out. All right, guys, it's about that time for the break. So enjoy your break. All right, guys, welcome back. So, I made some changes to the layout a little bit here. Just, as I'm working through this for the first time on as far as like this live coding is concerned, I'm trying to get my workflow situated. So, with time, things will improve. All right, so where we left off is we were able to create the first for loop. Oh, and the changes I made basically was I took the scratch pad and moved it to the right. The timer, which I'm going to reset, I put it somewhere else. So let me just start this timer to make sure we know how much time we have as far as the Pomodoro is concerned. And let me move that over here somewhere so we can see it. There we go. All right. And I just moved all the notes out so we can kind of get a better sense of what's going on. All right, so let's resume this. We're pretty much doing okay with time. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so getting back to the code, I had to create the first for loop. So we're step number 4, write a for loop that is going to iterate over the array and create the first pointer, store that in a variable. And I just printed out just to make sure that the thing is actually working. So it looks like in the raw output, I am going to each of those elements and printing them out. All right, moving to step 5, which is create a second for loop. Right, so we're gonna do nested for loops, which is fun. Yay! Very sure some always goes wrong with nested for loops, but let's just see how this goes for this example. So let j equal. So we're starting. Where are we starting this from? We're not starting it from. We're not starting it from the. We're not starting it from point to 0. We want to start it from whatever element we are on plus 1. Right? Right? I think so. But what happens when the outer loop gets to this one? We don't care about comparing it back to the previous one because that's already done. So we're always going to say start the inner loop's second pointer at I plus 1. Wherever I is at the moment. So right now I is at 2. And we want the second pointer, the inner loop, the second inner loop to start at the next integer over. All right, I think that's the way it should go. Well, let's see. So let j equal I plus 1. Let's see how it goes. All right. Cool. And we want to do this for the length of the array. So I'm going to assume it's I less than array.length. I feel like something's up there, but could be wrong. And we want to iterate. We want to increment that second pointer. So let me go over this one more time here. So we're saying for let j is the second pointer right, mine. Second pointer start at I plus 1. The condition is j I plus 1 is the second element is less than the array.length, not I. We're working with j. Okay. Hopefully. And then we increment. All right, cool. That may work. So let's test this out. Let's do a console.log. Actually, let's grab that element out. So store the second pointer in an element in an element, the pointer slash element in a variable. So let's do that. So we're going to say, call this second pointer, because that's what I called it here. And let's call this first pointer. First pointer, second pointer equals array.j. I mean array, a reference to j. The current element that j is on, which is I+1 initially. All right, so let's log this out. This is right, second pointer. Second pointer. Let's try to get trying to get better at these shortcuts. So we'll see how it goes. All right. So let's log out the first pointer too, just to make sure that they're both being accounted for. I might have done this already. Ooh, what happened? No. Okay. That's me trying to be nice with the shortcuts. All right, let's run it. So first pointer, let's just see what's going on here. How much time do I have left? 1910. Is that right? Roughly. All right. First pointer is 3. Second pointer. Okay. A couple elements in the array. First pointer is 5, which is correct because that was the second pointer. At the time, our first pointer was at the element 3, which is the first element in the array, which is index of 0. Right? I gotta talk to you, not that. So the nested for loop looks like it's working. So I think I'm set up in a way where I can make the comparison work a little bit better for me. And now at this point, I think in step 5, I am at a point where I created the second pointer, and now I'm in a position where I can take those numbers and do some sort of arithmetic on it, which I think it's simple at this point. It's just to add the two numbers together, because that's what it wants. It's two number sum. So it wants us to add the two numbers, which I'll do here. Inside the second for loop, make a comparison of the following. And I need to, like, what I envision is creating another variable and doing some math, having that stored in some memory, and then make a comparison with that. All right, so let's get to that point. But to this point here, it looks like the two for loops are working properly, right? But we'll find out for sure. Let's do the math to see if we get something that's gonna help us with this coding challenge here. All right, this music is Basura. What is this? Next song. All right, let's try that one. All right, anyway, 17 minutes. We're doing our time here. This is our last Pomodoro before I end this video, by the way, before our next break. So I may not finish this in time, but let's push for it. All right. All right, where was I? So create a variable called add two numbers. So here I'm going to create a variable called add two numbers and say, what did I say? We're going to do pointer 1 plus, do I even have reference? Oh, the first pointer. That's why I didn't change colors. Let's make some space here. Looks a little clustered there. First pointer plus second pointer. And let's add that, let's log it out. So here we're gonna do a console.log. Add two numbers. And let's see what happens. Guy, hey guy, Run code. What did I call it? Add two numbers. Oh, it worked. All right, here we go. Pointer three. Pointer. First pointer, which is 3. Taking the second pointer, which is 5. Adding those numbers to 8. Second pointer. Wait, I don't know if I want that. Hold up. Let me back up a little bit here. First pointer is 3. Second 3. So it should be 3 plus 5. Let me see what the first pointer looks like inside of here. Run code. Okay, yeah, so got a little confused there. Let me see what it looks like. I'm checking to see what the reference of the first pointer looks inside of the context of the second for loop. Right? So inside the second for loop, I have this first pointer reference pointing outside of the for loop, out of the nested for loop, and going to the first for loop that sits outside, right? That is enclosing the inner for loop, right? So it looks like I have it where it's first pointer is 3, second pointer is 5. First pointer is 3, second pointer is -4. First pointer is 3, second point. Okay, so this, I feel better about this now, that these two are actually in position to be compared to each other, right? So if I add first pointer and second pointer, I should get some numbers there. Let the math work its magic, and I'm gonna switch songs here. See what's happening here. Royalty-free music, people. All right, 3 plus 5 is 8. 3 plus -4 is -1. 3 plus 8 is 11. 3 plus 11 is 14. 3 plus -1 is 2. Is it 3 plus? Let me check something here. Where is the... That don't sound right. I'm always a little worried about like the negative stuff, right? I had to always look at references to like when you're adding a positive integer with a negative integer. I always gotta refresh my memory. But what I'm looking for is the prompt. All right. So here it's saying 11 plus -1 is 10. Okay, yeah. So it's going back down towards the negative side, so it's going to remove the 1. All right. Awesome. So I think I'm in the position to compare now. So let's do that. Let me go back to my notes, my scratch pad. So inside of here, I'm adding the two numbers. It looks like it's being printed out, right? Now some comparison is needed. So we're gonna say if add two numbers. If add two numbers is strictly equals to, let me lower this, target. We're gonna log it out. We're just gonna say something along the lines of, we have a match. Console.log. We have a paired match. And that paired match is going to be first pointer second pointer and the actual all right, let's just see what that looks like. I'm thinking in my head. Okay, so let's comment these out, run the code. All right, we have a paired match. So it looks like in the case of the prompt, 11 and -1. Okay. All right, it looks like that part is working. All right, so let's see what we can do here. Let's go back to Scratchpad. We're making progress. All right. So let's move on. And all right, so we have the pointers working. So we have this empty array. So we're gonna say paired numbers. All right. We're going to say paired numbers dot push. What are we pushing? First pointer. I forget. Can I push two things at once? How much time do I have? 8 minutes. Let me do a quick search. Can I push two elements to array JavaScript? I'm going to check to see if I can actually push two things at once. Push multiple elements to array. Trying to push multiple elements as one array, but getting error. This guy's pushing two things here, a null and an actual array. When using most functions of objects with apply and call, the context parameter must be the object you're working on. Oh, this is the apply method. Oh, I guess. Let's try like this. Just a comma separated is denoted by a comma. It looks like. All right, so let's just say that. Save us some time, I think. All right, and then I want to get out of the for loop here and do a log of the pair numbers array. Okay. Why is it printing out a lot? It shouldn't print out that much. Well, I mean, they're being pushed though. I mean, that's nice. That's nice. All right, we got something happening here. We have a paired match, 3 and 15. That equals that number. Okay, let's just stick with this test case 1. So we have a paired number match, 11 and -1 is being pushed. All right. Oh, well, maybe this break will help because it's still going. So if I just break here, right, and before I get out of this loop, I break here, and if I return this, I'm missing a case, test case. Or before I get to there, let me just run this code real quick. Okay, I pass I passed a couple of test cases. All right, making progress. All right, got 5 minutes. Hopefully I can do this now. Our code output, your code output. Empty? Why? For one, why did these pass in? Empty. Empty. I'm not capturing something. Um, what's this here? Where am I? Oh, because I'm still in the for loop. I need to get out of that. So this needs to be out here, I believe. All right, let's see what's going on. We got some errors happening. So, let's do a log of paired numbers and see what's happening here. We have a pair match, pair numbers 4, 6, but okay, so when I push here, I'm getting the numbers 4, 6 to be pushed. Let's get some of these logs out, clean this up a little bit. Pair numbers is being pushed because when I log it out, I get there. That's the only place I'm logging it out. Paired number, we have a paired match. Okay, so let's see. So we have test case 1 should have outputted 11 and -1, and I'm not getting that for some odd reason, and I kind of need to think this through. Let me uncomment some of this code here. And run that to see what's happening here. Add two numbers is 10. We have a paired match, 4 and 6. 10 is being pushed. Is being pushed. All right, so I may have to use a debugger here, and I may just save that for the next video because I think we're running out of time here. We have 2 minutes, so I'll just try to go through it with the naked eye, and then if that doesn't work, I'll create a follow-up video and I'll use the debugger tool. It's kind of like my next go-to if I don't kind of understand what's happening or something that I'm missing in my logic. Obviously, I'm missing something here that it could be something small, but I create a follow-up video to debug this code if I don't get to do it now with my naked eye, with what I'm looking at the moment. And we'll try to solve it then if we don't get to it now. So, but it appears I'm getting some information that I want to use. Okay. So, guy, be quiet with your ad. Actually follow this dude. Anyway, so we add two numbers, we get 4. Add two numbers here. Add two numbers. Okay. So test case 1 is expecting 11 and minus 1. All right. So, all right, guys, we're kind of running out of time. I'm going to stop here and move to the break, and then from there we're going just to recap how far we got so far, and just end the video there, because I'm a true believer that at a certain point your mind just goes blank, and it's not realistic to keep coding for like 10 hours straight. Some people work that way. I don't. I need to refresh my mind and kind of just step away for a little bit and then come back and solve the problem. I've solved some good coding challenges that way, where I just kind of worked on something for hours at a time. I step out and just hang out with my family, come back, and next thing you know, I figure it out. So with that being said, let's take our last break, our last 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and recap what we've done so far. See you soon. All right, guys, welcome back. So, uh, basically, so this is the recap, right? We've are at our last break for our Pomodoro structure technique that we're utilizing. So just to give you some perspective, this long break that we had, well, actually a short break. It should be a long break. It should be a 15-minute break. But for the sake of the video, for this session, for this video session, I just cut it down to 5, right? So, but just know that the long break should be 15 minutes long. All right, so I just wanted to take this time to recap what we've done so far, and then talk about next steps, right? What's going to happen next? So basically, let me get my some things here. What am I missing? Okay, I guess they're not working. Ooh, what happened? Am I still working here? All right, yeah, something happened here. All right, sorry about that. So we talked about the structure that I utilize to kind of work with problem solving. So my problem solving techniques comes and stems from the learning pyramid, right? And I'm gonna have other videos in the future that really goes over some pedagogies that I used that helped me as a software engineer to tackle any type of problem, basically, whether it be a coding challenge, a web application, or some other problem that I face when I was an instructor. So we talked about that, the learning pyramid. But in future videos, I want to kind of break down some of the pedagogies that I came up with and I created to help me and other students as well. I talked about the Pomodoro technique, basically, the structure of the videos and how they're going to work. I feel like breaks are key when it comes to coding challenges. I think breaks are a key part of letting the mind work, do focus work, but also take focus breaks to basically, when I say focus in terms of like letting your mind rest and kind of regroup itself so that you can take the next 25 minutes and tackle coding challenges with a fresher mind, a perspective, right? And it's also good to get up and walk around. All right. So the next step we took, we went and used some sort of like mind mapping and drawing out some of the examples that we thought could help us to lead us into the right direction as to like where should we be writing our pseudocode, right? And that's following the REACTO kind of strategy or framework, right? The R being repeat the question over and over, E being giving or writing examples, which in my case is what you're seeing in front of your screen. It's just a lot of scribbling and drawing of things and boxes and lines and connecting the dots to help it make sense for you. For me, this works. The A is for the approach, right? So I kind of blended the approach and example in one mind mapping scratchpad here. So, we went over the approach and we decided to do a loop, the iterative approach, right? We also talked about the pseudocode and the coding part of it, which is the following screen, right? We went and took a scratchpad that these guys provide us. The Algo Expert website provides us with a scratchpad, which is pretty cool. So thank you for that. And we went and wrote some of the pseudocode-ish from the scratchpad. We took the scratchpad notes and threw it into some pseudocode and tried to make a little more sense of it. And we followed this IPO structure, the input, process, and output, to give us some context as to like how to approach this pseudocode part. And then we move from the pseudocode part all the way down to the actual code, which you see on the left-hand side. All right, so that's kind of where we left off, and I feel like we got pretty far. We ended up passing some test cases, but we didn't pass all of them. And since we ran out of time, we didn't get to finish it. So next, what I would like to do is create a follow-up video to this and try to spend more time on this coding challenge. What I would like to do is use the debugger tool. So I would like to dive into that, and I'm hoping that Algo Expert environment will allow me to use the browser console when I inject a debugger tool, the debugger keyword in my code, and I just hope that the browser picks it up, where I can actually debug the code and dive a little bit deeper into the code as to what's happening at any given line. So I'm hoping that's gonna be a thing that Algo Expert allows me to do. So I feel like I'm not gonna do that in between videos. I'm actually do that on the video and during the break. So we'll see how that goes. And again, it's really just to give you an insight on how I solve problems and my process. And I'm hoping that whoever's watching this could provide me with some feedback. And if you're seeing that my process could be tweaked, I love constructive criticism. I'm an open book. I'm looking to improve on my code and my thinking. And I know I have a lot of areas of improvement that needs to be fine-tuned. So please comment below if you would like to do a pair programming session sometime down the road. I'm open to that as well. Or if you want to jump on one of these with me and kind of work on this together, that'd be awesome. That'd be great. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to end the video here, and it's been great. Thank you for your time. And my name is By Getroman. This is Built by Getroman, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.